Hey everyone, welcome to the Odink School of Mysteries. My name is Bear. Welcome to number 12. 12 is a good number. We've now officially reached the end of the base 12 counting system. So, congratulations. So, we've discussed blinds before. Blinds. A blind, as you may recall, isn't really a lie. But oh, is it close. It's really close. It's like, if this is a lie, and this is the line, a blind is like just writing that line. So it's pretty close. It's pretty close. And the way a blind works, it's basically, it's meant to keep secrets. Is what a blind is. A blind is meant to keep secrets. It's a very clever device. And it works like this. So a blind puts an over amount of emphasis on certain information to get somebody to come to an incorrect, pre-planned, foregone conclusion. It gets somebody to believe in an incorrect foregone conclusion. Pre-planned foregone conclusion. So, one that we've already covered, if you've been sticking with me this far, thank you. If you've been sticking with me this far, we talked about the born, you live, you die blind, where it goes unquestioned, no one even thinks about it, no one even questions it. It is just, it might as well be truth. We all assume that we're alive. No one pays any attention. That's a blind, because it's totally backwards, actually. The truth is, you die, and then you're born, and then you live. That's the cycle. And then once you live, you die, you go to the underworld, and you're born, you raise up, and so on and so forth. We've already talked about that one before. Another one, I don't know if we've talked about, a very common one is, if you're familiar with the chakra system, each chakra aligns very carefully, very closely with a planet, and so everyone assumes, because it winds up really well on paper, it works really well on paper, that the mind would be the sun. Well, this is a blind. It's a blind. It doesn't work out that way. The heart is the sun in the solar system of the body, not the other way around. So, blinds are, but the good blinds, the really sexy blinds, the ones that are like, that really take the cake, are the ones that are so subtle and so devious and so in your face that no one ever questions it. Because it makes such objectively, let's try this again. Objectively, it makes total sense, and it seems to be true. And the reason it seems to be true is because unless you are very intimately familiar, with the way the mystery school system works, and if you're intimately familiar with the way the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine work, those two concepts that operate in your brain, in your mind, then this blind will go unnoticed. So, enough suspense. The blind. The blind here is this. Evidence dictates truth. Evidence dictate. Can't talk. I'm very sorry. Evidence dictates belief. Evidence dictates belief. So, the way the blind is set up, it tells people that by looking at evidence, observing the evidence, That is what tells us what is true and what is false. Now, on the surface, that seems right. And I can already sense everybody shifting in the chairs a little bit. You know, you kind of get a little uncomfortable because it seems so out there. It seems so beyond the pale to say something so outlandish that it's not that way. I get it. I was the same way. It's one of those things that was really uncomfortable, but that discomfort you're feeling is actually a good thing. It's the signal that your brain is working. It's crunching numbers. It's trying to make sense of something it's not seen before. And so, you know, lean into the discomfort a little bit. You know, it's good. It's a good thing. So, evidence is the providence of the sacred masculine. The sacred masculine, as we have talked about before, symbolically represents things like logic, lists of things, numbers, things like philosophy, engineering, science, things that are quantifiable on a piece of paper. If you could write it down and quantify it on a piece of paper, it's sacred masculine. The problem with the sacred masculine, the male part of the brain, I keep saying the brain, I'm sorry, the mind, the male part of the mind is this. It cannot create anything new. No new ideas, no new discoveries come from the sacred masculine. It's a calculator. Which is why the sacred masculine needs to have its mate. It needs to have its spouse, the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine, on the other hand, has no logic or listicle informational data set type information. That's not her power. But she is all about creation. She's all about creation, the things that are new. It is she, not the sacred masculine, that looks at evidence and turns it into something else. It's not the sacred masculine that looks at the evidence and makes a determination. It's the sacred feminine. And it's that intuitive feminine energy that is in love with stories. That's in love with creation, that can take something out of nothing and turn it into something new. Right? So, it's actually her that dictates how we see evidence. There was it's been years ago now. I don't even remember his name, but he was a scientist. I was really big into anthropology when I was a little kid. And I remember him saying once that if scientists were honest, that the really only objective truth that you know for sure when you find a skeleton in the dirt is that it died. Everything else is story. And you can imagine the backlash he got from that, for daring to say such a heresy. So, there's a really good illustration for the way this works. Right. So, I'm going to pick on two different sets of people. And if you're part of these two different sets of people, I deeply apologize. It's for the greater good, I promise. Okay. So we'll say one set is a classical Darwinian evolutionist on one hand. Okay, we'll say the classical Darwinian evolutionist is over here. And then, for example's sake, we'll say like a 7-day creationist. Earth is 7,000 years old. Evangelical Christian on the other hand. And they're both anthropologists. And so in Africa, we'll say that they discovered there's a new skull that was just unearthed in Africa. So both these men, both anthropologists, both heavily credentialed, they pick up their bags and they head to Africa. So they head to Africa and they look at the bone in the dirt. There's a skull laying there in the soil. They pick up the skull, and they look at it. And they notice that it has elongated eyebrow ridges, right, just sticking out. A very long, elongated skull in the back. This is what they observe. Those two pieces of things. The Darwinian evolutionist will look at the skull and he'll say, okay, we can tell that this is an old ancestor of ours because clearly it exhibits similar characteristics to an earlier hominid, probably a monkey of some kind. One of our common ancestors, probably way back, we know this because of that the big eyebrow ridges, and the occipital bun is elongated, which is very common in primates. And so we know for sure that this is one of our early ancestors. This definitely supports evolution. Clearly, this supports evolution. The Christian will show up, and I feel like I could pick on one of these guys because I used to be one, like ages ago. I used to be one. So, Christian shows up, 7-day creation, 7,000 years. The Earth is 7,000 years old. He'll pick up the skull and he'll look at it and says, "Oh, well, this is evidence of someone who was pre-flood." You could tell that it's someone that was pre-Noah's flood because people back then we know that people back then were living to be about 800 or 900 years, and we know that your eyebrow ridges never stop growing your whole life, and so if you're someone who lives to be about 900 years, that your eyebrow ridges are going to be much bigger. And we also know that there's a lot of weight that your brain puts on the back, the occipital bun, and over the course of a 900-year lifespan, that the occipital bun will elongate. Where it's still just as human as your eye, but his features have changed due to his extreme age. So clearly, creationism is the way to go. So let me ask you this. Who's right and who is wrong in this? Do you know? Who's right and who's wrong? It's a good question, isn't it? You see what I'm saying, though? So both people, both the evangelical Christian and the Darwinian evolutionist, are looking at the exact same specimen, citing the exact same evidence, and coming to totally different conclusions. So let me ask you, was it the evidence that told them what to believe, or was it their belief that taught them how to interpret the evidence? Think about it. I know it's a little uncomfortable, huh? I know it's a little uncomfortable, but this is the way truth works. This is the feeling of your brain expanding. This is the feeling of ascension. It's your feeling of your consciousness getting bigger. So, when it comes to beliefs and stories, it helps to know the way the mind works. In order to understand truth, it helps to understand the way the mind works and how things really work in the natural world. So, I'm part of the Mystery School of Odin. I guess you could call him. He's my story, the story that I pay attention to. So, people will come to me. I'm sure some of you at some point will ask me. They'll say, "Bear, is Odin truth?" Is that the true way to go? Is that the right way to go? Is it the correct way to go? And the way to think about it is like this. Or even though I asked that about Christianity too. Is Christianity the way to go? Should I follow Christ? Or Brahma, or Buddha, or any number of gods? So the way to look at it is like this, in my opinion. Picture yourself looking at like a cube, like a child's block, for example. And you're looking at it right on. So if you look at it straight on like this. And so all you see is just a square. You can't see a cube, all you see is a square. And you could take out a ruler and you could measure that square. You could make rubbings of the square. You could take pictures of it. You could measure how it reflects sound. You can measure its ability to absorb light. You can come to all kinds of conclusions to that. You can prove that that square is 100% true with science. With science and with technology, unequivocally 100% true. That square is truth. Yes. But is it the whole truth? Or is there more going on than meets the eye? This is one of my heroes. His name is Manly P. Hall, actually. His book here. One of his quotes that always stuck with me is that the half-truth is the most... how's it go? The half-truth is the most insidious form of a lie because it can be proven in part with incontestable logic. The half-truth is the most insidious form of a lie because it could be proven in part with incontestable logic. So when we're dealing with stories, we're dealing with evolution, we're dealing with scientism, which is the belief as it's like science as a religion, as a worldview, where scientism is like if you take science out of just a realm of inquiry and into a worldview, a naturalistic worldview. So scientism, Christianity, religions with multiple gods, all of that stuff, mathematics, all of it. It's all like looking at that cube. And people, they look at the cube and they see their square and they prove their square and they pound their fists on the table saying, gosh darn it, why can't you see the truth? I have the truth. I can measure it. I could see it. I can respond to it. I could show it to you. Why don't you understand? And the next person will turn to him and say, well, you don't understand. I have the truth. I could see it. Why don't you understand? And that is the... How do I explain where I'm going to? How do I explain where I'm going with this? And this is why a knowledge of law is important. And this is what we're dealing with here. You could fight the stream, or you could harness it, right? You could stand against the current of this raging river and try and push against it and fight it. But you're fighting against natural laws. And there is no fighting against natural laws. There is just working with natural laws. So if you understand that we've been reading it backwards this whole time, if you understand that the story is the means that God has given you, or if you are like me and you tend to lean towards many gods, if it's the story that the gods have given you, to give you the means to decode the information that has been placed in front of you. It's a means of decoding the universe. You have to have the story to decode the universe. And that is that is essentially what the mystery schools have been trying to teach. And that's one of the things you learn once you start getting into this stuff. That there's a lot less emphasis on the importance of a very specific story. There's a lot more emphasis on your ability to interpret what is out there through the story. That's why we always come back to this stuff, right? This is the story. This is the story. This is, in the Mysteries of Odin, it's Odin's story that gives us the ability to decode the evidence that we see and put it into applicable, usable information. All of this stuff, right? Polarity and vibration and shapes and symbolism and all this stuff. You know, all of this stuff that we've covered through our time together. It's the story that lets us decode all of this stuff. Once you understand that, once you're able to use your story, whichever story you like, then you can start seeing what's really there. I know, therefore I see. And I see, therefore I live. I know, therefore I see. I see, therefore I live. On the opposite end, you could say, I am ignorant, therefore I'm blind. And I'm blind, therefore I'm dead. The first part of knowing is understanding your toolkit. If you understand your toolkit, then you can progress. And so I hope I did okay, and I hope I didn't make that too confusing. But you know, these things are important to understand. You know, getting to grips with some of this stuff, understanding the way these laws work and function will do a great deal in helping you progress. And I want you to progress. I want you to be happy. I want you to be set free. I want you to be able to think and be able to weed out all the bullshit on your own so that you could take the world by storm and do whatever you need to do. So, all right, you guys and gals, I love ya. And if you're still with me, happy late Mother's Day. I didn't make one on Mother's Day, so I hope you got goodies. All right, bye.